and some say that Silicon had never been more fragmented.
All right, welcome to another installment of Fragments Silicon. I'm your host, Adam, and joining me as always are Golix and Pettyfang. Golix, why don't you start us off with the news this week?
Well, it's not a great week for my normal sleeping schedule, since this Monday we had an all-staff meeting that I had to get up early for, i.e. at normal people hours, and then this coming weekend is my grandmother's memorial service, which I didn't find out about with as much notice as I had hoped, which I will have to be getting up pretty early for because it is in Massachusetts and I live in Maine, so, it's a couple of states away. But hopefully I'll be able to sleep in the car, just like I probably fell asleep a couple of times during the all-staff meeting. I think that's the main thing I've got going on in my life right now is the anticipating that. Otherwise, video game wise, looking forward to the Halloween or the Valentine's Splatfest of dark milk white chocolate. I have not decided. I'm probably on team milk chocolate, but dark is a nice color, so and working on doing the post. I basically finished all the real story stuff of Pokemon Scarlet. But I still have to do the talk to your friends. I have to still have one of the Treasures of Ruin left to catch. And I'm working on trying to do the higher level raids when I can. Still waiting for the freaking home compatibility so I can offload some of the large number of things that I've caught that I don't totally want to get rid of. Or at least in home, you can release more than one thing in one go.
Yeah,
so.
I do hate that.
Let's see. Macross Sundays with Mac are continuing to go pretty well. We managed to succeed at that stage last time. And I think that's about all I've got.
All right, Petty, it's your go.
Overall, fairly quiet. Yeah, no real big world-ending things going on. What's it? Next weekend, I believe, there is another big Digimon tournament, because they're just trying to squeeze one more, because the new set's coming out next week. So they're trying to squeeze one more tournament in for the people who are going to locals so they can get some more or nationals so they can get some more cards.
Yeah, I think there's some debated hours about when we'll be able to hold that because some people aren't available.
Yeah. So yeah, that's gonna be fun. As far as just health stuff wise, one of the nifty things I found out about my mom's job is they make custom knee braces. So next time I see my orthopedic doctor talking about getting a prescription for one of those, hopefully get, at least a little more protection and or a little more stable.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah, I've already fallen a few more times, and it sucks. So hopefully this will help. Supposedly they now have a new company to help see about getting me the gel injection shots in my knee to hopefully keep it from needing, to be replaced as soon.
That would
But
be good.
yeah, because needing a knee replacement at 30 is not exactly conducive for it lasting long.
Yeah, knee replacements as a thing are generally designed for a lifespan of the device that is not as long as you hope to live after 30.
Yeah. Especially because they can only do revision on it so many times, so...
Yeah, you can't really do a knee replacement.
Yeah.
Eventually you run out of stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, hopefully we can get that sorted out soon. I just send in the paperwork Monday, so I should hear back something by the end of the week. And I guess the last big thing is hopefully my sleep doctor put in the order to get me a new CPAP machine. Because God, that has been a pain in the ass experience.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully I should hear something by that in the next couple weeks, or I need to call my people who do my actual CPAP equipment. In worst case, I'm yelling at my doctor's office again, because oh god. And yeah, I think that's about it for me.
Okay, I guess it's my go then. Let's see. I suppose the big news for me this past week was I had to take a trip to the ER because I mentioned that I was dealing with some finger swelling last week,
Mm-hmm.
and it turns out that was a finger infection. Like, actually, it turned out to be 3 finger infections.
On the same finger?
Ooh.
Or manifested 3 different ways. Like it was 3 different conditions, something like that. The most concerning was the cellulitis, which is the skin infection that was heading down to my arm.
Yeah, that's not good.
It's nothing that a bit of surgery and antibiotics can't cure. They cut out the pus and drained the wound and gave me antibiotics for the next 10 days.
You.
I've actually dealt with this before. Like, this wasn't as bad as the last finger infection. They were talking about
Clearly you need replacement fingers.
well,
Can I interest you in a robot arm?
and not with today's articulation. Like,
Give it about 20 more years.
yeah, it's like, yeah, artificial limbs are kind of lacking in that right now.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I suppose that's my news. Is enough for the week. Anyway, so merrily we shall roll along to the interview portion of the broadcast. And if our guests could introduce themselves.
Of course. Hi. I'm Luciano Musella, founder and president of Whiteboard Games. I'm also the game director there of Icy Red.
And I am Agustín Trobajo. I am in the same team, Whiteboard, as Luciano. I was in charge of marketing and community management of Icy Red, and we're so glad to be here with you today. Thank you for the invitation.
Okay. Right. So how we like to get started is we like to get to know the people behind the games, the studio, and all that business. And we begin that journey by asking this particular question. What got you interested in video games, both on a personal and a professional level?
Well,
Who should begin?
well, sorry. I think that
You go.
I
You
already...
go.
Yeah. So, as probably a lot of you here, games began in my life when I was very young. Actually, was like 3 years old. My folks got me a Sega Genesis, and since then I played games non-stop. Eventually, games became, aside from a hobby, more like a passion. I was really digging, knowing everything that made the industry and all the news surrounding them, reading reviews, magazines, and everything that I could, up until the point where it wasn't enough. And I wanted to know how the games were made, and I wanted to make them myself. So that's how I ended up studying and eventually becoming a professional video game developer.
Well, about me,
Mm-hmm.
I also started playing games when I was little, but I think much less than Luciano. Um, but actually, we met in an Argentine game. We are from Argentina, South America. An Argentine game called Imperium I. It was an MMORPG. Medieval stuff. Play with your friends. Um, and I got really into that, and so much so that I ended up on the staff, the team, the development team of the game, which was also the case with Luciano. And there we met, and a few years later, we became friends. We still go out every once in a while, and a few years later, Luciano started his company, as he told you, and invited me to hop in, and here we are.
Mm. Okay, and let me see. So how long has Whiteboard Games been around?
Well, Whiteboard started depending on how you want to see it, because it has a very funny story of a beginning. We began the studio more like a study group, meaning we were in college, we were studying video game development, and we nicknamed our team Whiteboard because we thought, hey, every idea starts in a whiteboard, so why we don't just call our team Whiteboard? And well, a couple of years went by until we reached March of 2021, and from there we actually graduated and actually began the studio in a professional fashion, because we actually managed to get funding. We got a private investor to join our adventure, and well, that's when we started to hire a lot of folks to work on Icy Red, which was our first title.
Indeed, I'm looking at your website, and there's quite a few people listed here.
Yeah,
Like,
there's 30 of us now, I think.
Yeah, 30.
yeah, that's a pretty sizable team for an indie dev.
Indeed,
Yes.
it is.
It should be clarified that not all of those people, not all of those that you see there worked in Icy Red.
Right.
Actually, there were some other projects, and now we are, development for Icy Red is finished. So to say, we're released in PC, but it might come to other platforms. But we are now working on new projects, so naturally and luckily, and of course we're very proud, the team grew to what it is today.
And let me see here. So was Icy Red like the first conceptualization you had at Whiteboard, or were there other like prototypes, projects? Were there other things before that not necessarily saw the light of day before Icy Red?
It was the first idea. Of course, since we were in college, we had a lot of games that we made for the college itself and different exams and so on. But the first professional title that we developed was Icy Red, and since it came as the seminar, meaning the final project, the thesis of the actual career in college, because the idea there was to, during a whole year, produce a game like if it were a proper game that you were willing to be selling on Steam or other platforms. That was the whole principle behind that exam that lasted the whole year. So, of course, we didn't make like a bunch of games. We just made one, and that one was actually Ice Red.
Right. And so where did the concept for Icy Red come from? Like, who had the idea? And Petty, you need to change the title here. One of our guests is not listed.
I think that will be me. Yes, it's okay. Don't worry.
I mean, it
so
can
yes,
be added, on the fly and all that.
on the fly. Well, technology is here. I love it.
Indeed.
So, well, me being the game director, I run all the general ideas for the game, all the game design ideas and mechanics, particularly the actual main idea, the core idea of the game, meaning the player sees red, comes actually from a very little story of my childhood. My father is a very relaxed and calm person. When you talk to him, he talks very slowly and relaxed, like I'm talking to you right now, and he's always at peace. But in 2 or 3 occasions, he actually wasn't like this. Certain situations, certain persons, and other things actually got him very mad, angry. He couldn't control himself and the rage inside of him, and he just exploded. And he told me, I couldn't resist myself. I saw red. And those words stuck with me forever. And that's why the game is called like this, and why I managed to come up with a story of what if someone who is the most nicest of loyalist of persons just has a very bad day and they change their whole life, their whole world because of one situation. And well, that's how Icy Red began as an idea.
Like, I'll admit I would not have been able to discern that exactly from, the actual gameplay on display here, because, and like the description, because it's like, it's a twin stick shooter where you're fighting killer robots or something like.
No, they are not killer robots. They are killer robots far in the game, but those are just mere soldiers. And if you're wondering what's the story behind it, why when I began the game, our player just rampaged through a ship like he doesn't care. Well, you will find out the game has like quite a lot of cutscenes where you will learn about the mysterious background of our protagonist Matthew Taurus. There are a lot of things to learn, especially, and of course, the reason as to why he sees red.
Yes, it's kind of a story that you discover as you play. You start to find little items that seem out of place. They even have color, which is something that is not present in the rest of the game. Everything else is black, white, and red. But these items have color, and they are strange. Some are even cute. And you say, well, what is this? And through those items, the game starts unfolding and discovering to you its story, the backstory of the character.
Okay. And was there a particular reason that you wanted to make this idea into a twin stick shooter?
It was actually a concept that began in college as one of the main, how to put it, like we had like certain concepts that we need to follow, some rules that the school actually provided, meaning different genres that we were allowed to use. And one of them was actually a twin stick shooter. The others were like a racing game and other things that we were as interested. So we were like, well, a twin stick shooter fits our ideas, and we actually didn't do anything like it in the past. So we thought, hey, why not? We love the genre. It's really fun. It's fun to pick up and play like immediately. Anyone that has a joystick can enjoy it without even needing to know the controls and so on. So we thought, hey, why not?
That would be interesting. I see it as a racing game.
Well, the traffic. Oh,
I mean,
you will believe the
Oh,
traffic.
well, yeah.
I could see how
Uh,
I could see how the base idea would work as a racing game. You know, you get cut off by somebody and you have some road rage.
Yeah, there's something there. Road rage.
Yeah.
Almost like The
Road
Simpsons
rage
did something
mode?
like that earlier. Weird.
Yes, they did. But it wasn't this stylish.
I know.
Well, there is also Carmageddon. Not sure if you play it, but Carmageddon, the series, well, it's basically a guy like it that he's very angry at the pedestrians and he just kills them all.
I remember that game. And yeah. Now, when I see the art style here, I'm reminded of. Did anyone else play Mad World?
Oh yeah, we got that a lot. Actually, the inspiration didn't come from Mad World at all or any other similar games like it. It's quite funny, but yeah, Mad World is actually a really cool looking game, and I am glad we are compared to it. But the inspiration actually comes from actual technical limitations. Since the game began as a college project, we actually didn't have the resources. We were only 4 of us working on it, and we didn't have any actual talent making art. So we needed a fast way to come up with a cool looking visual style. So not having to work on any textures or colors was the way to go. When we eventually did got the money and funding, we actually managed to add textures. The game now has like a shading of gray. Actually, the game previously was just black, white, and red. There was no gray in between. But yes, we didn't have any finishes at all. It was just ourselves trying to come up with limitation of the team, and it turned out pretty unique because of it.
It certainly stands out, at least, it's a genre, because I mean, I'm not going to say that this idea hasn't done before, but I can't really think of another, black and white noirish, if you will, twin stick shooter out there.
Indeed, of course, we didn't invent the actual black and white and red aesthetic, but of course, we do feel like there aren't like enough titles for the actual topic, and there aren't. I don't think there is like any actual game. Oh no, you died in the boss. No, no, there aren't like any other games that actually use the narrative as part of the visual style. Meaning, when you see a pixel art game, when you see a game that has toon graphics, or whichever art style you choose, there are no justifications for it in the actual narrative. But this is like a very strange game where the narrative and the visual styles are related. The game looks like it does because the narrative says it does, and it's very interesting.
I mean, yeah, certainly for a game of this type, that doesn't happen too often. I suppose it depends on the type of twin stick shooter, because there's a couple of types. Like there's the more arena based, say like Geometry Wars, and then you got stuff like this that takes more after, say, Smash TV, something like that. And indeed, there's a lot of adventure elements There's a money system. What do you use that for?
Well, the game is also a roguelite. It's not only twin stick shooter. So meaning you will be able to upgrade the player itself and get upgrades for the current run. There is a shop. There are actually not a shop. There are like 3 shops in the game. So you can upgrade yourself, your weapons, the things that you grab, and so on. There are like a lot of things. Because since the game is a roguelite, you can play the game over and over and start a new run that's very different. After you beat the prologue, you need to beat the prologue right now if you want to see that. So my suggestion will be to actually, if you're having a hard time, maybe you can lower the difficulty on the settings menu. Maybe you can at any moment in time. You don't even need to start the game over. You can just press the pause button and you will be able to do so. So yeah, that's one of the reasons.
Okay. So is the game a roguelike?
Yes.
Yes.
It's a roguelite. Because, as Luciano said, you die and you start over from the first level once you get through the prologue. But you do have some permanent upgrades that you buy with, or that you. It's a strange process. When you die, you get cloned, and in the process of cloning, you can upgrade yourself so that your cloned self is better. That's the in-universe explanation. But you will find that along the levels, you will find printing matter, which are some red glowing orbs, and with that is like the currency that you need to upgrade yourself permanently. So that when you die, you start again, but you're a little bit better, a little bit stronger, a little bit better prepared to face the level.
Right. And are the levels procedurally generated?
No, that's a pretty distinct thing for between Icy Red and other games of the genre. The levels are handmade, every one of them. What the game does help, because you might think, okay, that might get a little repetitive if you play a lot of times. But what we did was make a lot of levels. So when you advance, you get to choose where you want to go. There is a level select menu that is in your ship, the ship you used to go from ship to ship, and there you can choose, okay, I want to invade this one or that one, according to where you've been before. If you want a higher challenge, if you want more valuable ships, and so on.
Okay, I think I get what you're saying. It's kind of a branching path sort of deal based off of the level of challenge.
Yes, when you, correct me if I'm wrong, Luciano, when you get to select your levels, you can see 2 sliders, one which is difficulty and other which is value. And depending on those, difficulty is, how many enemies, how hard the level is, and value is what kind of rewards you can get, the amount of printing matter, for example, that you can find in the level.
The higher the risk, the higher the reward.
Exactly.
And is like outside of that, or is there any sort of like multiple endings based on the difficulty you select?
On the difficulty, no. There are actually no penalizations for changing the difficulty. We wanted to basically have the player enjoy whatever experience he feels he's capable of. But there are multiple endings. There are actually 3 endings, but not based on the difficulty, but based on how many things you done in the game. There are like many things you can do. If you do all of them, you get a certain ending, and so on.
Okay, and is it a spoiler on how you get the particular ending?
Not really an spoiler. I mean, if I tell you the actual ending, it will be spoiler. But no, you will be able to grab certain memories, mementos of your past life. If you get all of them, you get a special ending. If you don't get all of them, you get another ending. And if you keep playing after you beat the game twice, you get the third ending. That's how you get all of them.
Okay. And how many levels would you say you ended up making for Icy Red?
They're like 60, I think. I think they're like 60. I will have to check the number. I think they're like 60. Of course, when you play the game, you only play like 10, so you don't really end up perhaps seeing them all in like your first 20 runs or so. So by the time you are finished with 100% of the game, you will still be finding new levels.
So, like, how many levels would you say you go through in a run?
I think
10?
there are 10, 11 if you count the prologue, right?
Indeed. Of course, in the prologue, you don't get to play it again. There are 10. You need to actually straight up play 10 levels to reach the final boss. The final boss is always in the 10th level.
Yes, you will find that there are different areas or environments with different enemies in the game. Humans first, then aliens, and finally robots, the killer robots that Luciano was talking about earlier.
Right.
And at the end of each one of those stages, you will find that environment's boss. So an alien boss, a human boss, and so on. And you, of course, you have to defeat them all to beat the game, which is quite challenging. I myself, I played a lot and find it challenging. Our main developers who played the game for, I don't know, a million of hours find it challenging. Hopefully the players do too, because that was the idea.
Okay. And what sorts of weapons and upgrades will you find across a playthrough?
Well, for weapons, you will have like all sorts of weapons: shotguns, SMGs, bazookas, grenade launchers, Tesla railguns, and like so many more that I cannot remember now. There are like alien weapons, like a part of a spine, a claw, and other bizarre weapons. And for upgrades, well, the actual right now that we're seeing on stream, the player when he dice gets cloned, but the clone itself, the new body gets like stats upgrades, meaning more health, more resistance. When you make a brutal murder, you will get even more health, and so on. And lastly, on the run itself, will be greeted with passives, meaning special abilities that change the game dramatically. For instance, I think you had equipped the projectiles have a perforation, and you on the last run you had, I think, bouncing bullets. There are also that straight up just summon allies, meaning robots that fight alongside you, mosquitoes, other bizarre creatures that also join the fight. You also get some strange abilities, like, for instance, a flaming suit, meaning you will be always be on fire, and everything that you touch gets on fire, and you get the world burning, and it's hilarious. You have like a lot of bizarre abilities that just change up the game entirely.
It's interesting because so I am marketing, right? As I said in the beginning. And so I often get the perspective, a sort of outside perspective of the game. Perhaps I play it every once in a while, but then I hop into a call and they added a million new things. And sometimes I go into and I see I'm very bad at the game. So perhaps I cannot get past, or I couldn't get past at first, the first levels. And suddenly I hop into a call and I see that they're playing the last levels, robot levels, and they have like 10 passives, and the player is some crazy thing with wings and on fire and shooting a million weapons that bounce off the walls and then explode. And it's like you become really the passives that you grab shape the way you play, and change how everything looks, how the player looks, and how you interact with the environment. So you can get, there are some pretty crazy combos to grab.
Okay. And what are some of the permanent upgrades?
The permanent upgrades are stats for the player, meaning health. The grappling hook, for instance, is able to perform a brutal murder, which is an execution that heals you. Well, to do that, you need to charge the hook with a certain amount of kills. Well, the number is actually upgradable. The health that you gain when doing this execution is also increased. Movement speed, resistance. The infinite pistol gets ability to do critical shots and fire faster, have more bullets, and that. Well, there are more upgrades that I cannot remember now, but basically they are stat based for the player itself and the weapon.
Right. And what about rage mode?
And rage mode, yeah, that I forgot. And you can also upgrade rage mode on the cloning machine. Thank you. Yes, you can also upgrade rage mode. Rage mode, for those that don't know, is a mode that when you deal a certain amount of damage or you take a certain amount of damage, you can enter it by pressing a certain combination of buttons, and you will at first blow everything around you. You will push everything, including the enemies. You will have increased movement speed, increased resistance, and the grappling hook, meaning the actual executions, will be infinite, meaning you can throw a hook and make the execution of an enemy, and then go to another, and another, and another, and you unlock the ability to do the executions on really large enemies, because previously you are not able to do so, but now you can. And also, you get which one was it? Speed, damage resistance. There is like an armor attribute that you also get that I'm now forgetting, but there is a third one. Melee damage, because you can also play with melee and you can hit things very strongly. You just did it on stream and I remembered it.
Yeah. I'm watching the stream right now, and you enter rage mode. Well, you just died, but if the viewers are watching, there's a white circle that is around the player, and beside it there's a red bar that starts to fill. That's your rage meter. When that is full, you can enter the rage mode and kill everyone in sight.
Kind of describes what it's on in the tin. He's full of rage and he's going to rage.
Indeed. Yes.
Anyway, so how long did it take to develop Icy Red?
Well, Icy Red began development on March of 2020, and if you remember correctly, that's the date where the world imploded. So yes, we were at home, safeguarded of everything, but we still had our PCs. So we began production of Icy Red at that moment in college, and for that one whole year we did Icy Red. And then on March 2021, when the company began the more professional side of it, a bunch of people joined, and we kept producing Icy Red until October of last year, meaning Icy Red was in production for 2 and 8 months, 2 years and 8 months, something like that. And then a couple of months after, we did more patches and updates, so almost 3 years of working on the game. So yeah, and 18 people working behind it, actually.
Yeah, it was asymmetric though. Very few people at the beginning, and the 18 at the end. So development did speed up.
Uh-huh.
Oh, there in the stream, I'm seeing that you just grabbed a memory item. Couple of rings.
Hmm.
How mysterious. I wonder what that means.
Could be a few things. But anyway, so how has the game been faring since it got released last October?
How did the game was?
How has it been selling?
on the selling side of things, well, not as great as I would have hoped, and we have all hoped. The sales numbers were quite stagnating, and we were wondering, of course, like any of us that makes games, as to what exactly happened, because the game actually has 94% positive reviews, so at least we know on the game design of things that people love the game. So we were wondering what we should be doing on the other side of things. Maybe it was on the marketing side of things, maybe it was on the actual genre itself, maybe it was the release date, maybe it was a lot of different factors that, well, we don't simply know.
Yeah, that's one of those things that can be hard to pin down. At the very least, I can say you have a hook, with your red, white, and black and gray art style and a twin stick shooter. But it can be any number of things, from marketing to time of release to just the fact that there are so many games coming out these days. Like, and as I understand it, this Icy Red is only on the PC right now.
It's
That's
only
correct.
on PC, yes.
Like, that could be another limiting factor.
Yeah, it could be. We are, of course, working on the console versions of the game, but of course, we will still expect perhaps a better result only for the PC version. Still, even if the game were also on consoles, I think the numbers for each platform should be like a little bit more independent.
Is your game only on Steam, or is it on GOG and the Epic Game Store as well?
It is on a lot. I think that almost all the platforms, aside from actually GOG, it is on the Epic Game Store.
Games. It is on Humble Bundle.
Humble, Fanatical.
Okay. So at the very least, it's got availability on its side. Like, it's...
Yeah, I remember a talk we had with, I don't remember who it was with. I think it was a senior developer from Argentina, that told us, because we are Whiteboard, we are a company. It started with Icy Red, but it doesn't end with Icy Red. And he told us, don't expect your first game to be a massive commercial success, or at least don't plan for that. Plan for it to be just your first step, and for it to give you enough airspace for a second game. So I think we did that, and that is luckily why we are still here, and we are still growing and working every day and working on new games. So yeah, it was nonetheless the quality of Icy Red, the amount of detail that I could see them pouring into the game was amazing. So obviously, if you want to play Icy Red, I'm pretty sure you will take a nice surprise and you will have fun. But yeah, it goes on.
And in regards to the console versions, are you targeting all major platforms?
We are targeting all of them, yes. PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and the Nintendo Switch.
There's a lot of interest for Switch. A lot of people have asking to put it there.
I'm not surprised. Indies tend to do well on the Nintendo Switch, from what I understand. And I suppose targeting the Nintendo Switch version, is it going to be the same experience as on the bigger consoles in the PC, or are you having to rework it a bit to meet the specifications of that platform?
Well, since we haven't quite finished doing the port on that one. I cannot really say how it's going to end up being. Of course, the game, at least on the content side of things, should be the same. Now, on the technical side, meaning how well will it look, how well will it perform, and so on, it is to be announced because, well, we need to finish it first to come to any conclusions. Of course, our goal is to have it as much possible similarities to the PC version as we can, but of course, I am a realistic person. The Nintendo Switch only has 4 gigabytes of RAM. It has an NVIDIA Tegra X1, which is like the oldest chip in the world. So yes, there are of course certain expectations that we need to lower for the Nintendo Switch version.
Right. And can you talk about how far along the console versions are in terms of developments?
I cannot really say it at the moment.
Fair enough. And I guess my final question at this juncture is the soundtrack. Who did you have to make the music for Icy Red?
Oh, well, our main composer, Luca Nicolau, it's a very, very talented person that did all the major tracks for the game, as well as making all the actual dynamic music for it, because the game, based on your actions, changes, and he did all the engineering behind it. So yeah, he worked on the music alongside Christian Perucci, Luis Monrocle, and Kevin Kenner. All those 4 worked on the soundtrack for all these years, and well, I mean, I have no idea how to play guitar, but so I can say on the most unbiased of opinions that I love what they did.
Good. Like, all right. Petty, Galax, do you have any further questions for our guests?
No, I think I'm good, thanks.
I think I'm good.
All right. Yeah. So I want to thank you both for taking time out of your schedule and being with us here today. It was a enlightening conversation about Icy Red, and we certainly hope the console versions go smoothly and see success. And we wish you luck on your next project, whatever that may be, and maybe we'll have you back on when that's ready to be talked about.
Maybe, I hope so. But yeah, thank you for having us again, and had a really good time. Thank you,
Do you
everyone.
want to mention the giveaway that we just started?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was getting to that.
Okay, fair enough.
Right. Yeah. So before we switch segments here, I will mention that our guests here have graciously given us 3 codes for a giveaway, which has launched. If you want to claim one of those, you will need to go into our Discord server. Somebody put the link in the chat window.
This link should put you directly into the giveaway section of our Discord to sign up for it.
Yeah. And the giveaway will be running until the Sunday reviews.
I think I put it in for the 6th accidentally. I don't know how to change it, so you have till Monday.
Okay. Monday will work too. But yeah. Yeah, so there are 5 days to claim the codes. Good luck to the winners.
Yep, 3 winners. You will be contacted by me, Petty Fan, via private message through Discord, so make sure you have those open.
Right. And if you wish to purchase the game and don't get one of the codes available for giveaway, you can pick it up on a PC digital storefront of choice for $9.99. The Steam version, at the very least, also has the soundtrack DLC available for $3.99, and it's got a bundle for $11.88. So be sure to pick it up today. Petty, play us to the next segment.
Give me 1 second. I was in the wrong window.
Okay. Did it play?
I hope so. It sound like it did.
Concerning.
Well, I guess we're here now.
Sorry, I had the sound down, so I can't tell for sure.
All right. Live broadcasting, everyone.
I know.
Anyway, welcome to the topic of discussion. So this week we are talking about Dead Space. Obviously, we are talking about Dead Space because Dead Space just got released, or rather, the 2023 remake, of which existence is hotly debated, believe it or not, or at least it was prior to release. You know, a lot of discussion about whether or not Dead Space should be remade, but since the game has come out and the reviews have been shockingly good, like I don't think anyone had this remake pegged for this amount of critical praise.
Yeah, it had a lot of red flags for remakes. Things that, when they are in a remake, do not usually signal a promising future, but that doesn't mean it can't be good, even if it's a modern remake of something that isn't actually that old, where they say they're going to go in and change things.
Well, yeah, and also rewind to a couple of months ago, and beyond, and you've also got the Callisto Protocol into the discussion. If you don't know what the Callisto Protocol is, that was aiming to be the spiritual successor to Dead Space. As in, this was a game created by some of the remnants of the original team that at least worked on the first Dead Space, I believe. I'll grant you, I wasn't paying that much attention to the Callisto Protocol's development, so I don't know how much of the team is transposed from the original Dead Space to the Callisto Protocol, but I suppose given how things have played out, they could have used more or something, because, the way things have sussed out, at least in the critical arena, is the Callisto Protocol has been a massive disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
While the Dead Space remake has, succeeded any expectations, which granted, were probably low.
Yeah, I
at
mean,
least
for
from
what
the
should
fan
have been a
base.
dead franchise, yeah.
It's not worse than the original.
Yeah. And I have not personally played the remake. In fact, it's probably going to be a while before I do that, because I don't buy games new, because holy shit, I have so many games at any one given time. And it's also, I don't buy games at $60 or $70. Also, I don't think my laptop would like this game very much.
Oh god, no.
Mhm.
Looking at the system specs on Origin while I was downloading the first Dead Space, I was like, oh yeah, this would probably make Adam's computer explode.
Yeah. Not sure if it's Steam Deck verified or anything like that, but at any rate, I've at least looked at footage, and it definitely looks a lot more modern. That is to say, it's got a lot more in the way of naturalistic lighting and shit like that. I think that was the thing that really stood out to me versus the 2008 Dead Space, where lighting, it's kind of like when Star Trek jumped from movies to television. Like the technology there is there to have lighting, then it's not necessarily like fluorescent or anything in Dead Space, but it's a lot more even static lighting. You could only do so much on an Xbox 360.
I mean, it is looking a little bit better on my computer, but I also have an RTX graphics card, so
Well, that's the PC version.
yeah.
So from what I understand, the PC version had some port problems.
Oh god, let's not talk about the mouse acceleration. I have to play this with a controller because, oh no.
Yeah, I switched controller as well. When I played Dead Space 1 a few years ago, and I remember that. I think the other major issue with the PC version was the frame rates. Like I think it's locked to 30.
I think they uncapped it now because it was giving me an option to go all the way up to native for me that's 75. So they may have fixed that, but I'm not fully for sure.
Fair enough. And I think I hope they've updated the Steam versions because Dead Space 2 needs to be fucking fixed. I tried to play that and its broken ass DRM wouldn't let me.
Yeah, that was another problem with both Dead Spaces, I think.
Dead Space, I didn't have a problem with that with Dead Space 1. Dead Space 2, I have to imagine they fixed that because they were giving away Dead Space 2 as a giveaway, a pre-order bonus on Steam.
That'd be a hell of a way to find out your game's still broken.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it's like I couldn't say exactly what they've added to Dead Space in 2023. But I suppose we should actually talk about the franchise overall. Because EA, though barely, did manage to turn this into a franchise, a transmedia franchise. Granted, I don't think anyone remembers Dead Space Downfall or Dead Space Aftermath. Those were direct-to-video animation things that, I guess, that filled in the lore or something. And there might have been a book or two.
But no major motion picture, so who's even counting?
Well, like a lot of video games don't get that.
No, I know.
Like
I don't actually think that's the standard.
Yeah. But there are more Dead Space games than I think people realize. By that, there are the 3 main Dead Space games. Of course, there's the remake that just came out. But there's also Dead Space Extraction that gets forgotten about. Which was it made sense in context. That was the Wii spin-off. For you, and it was a light gun game.
Makes sense, sort of. The Wii is at least theoretically good at that.
Well, yeah, I think I remember Dead Space Extraction being fairly popular. Not as popular as the mainline Dead Space, but I think it did well enough. It was basically, they looked at what Resident Evil was doing on the Wii and said, let's do that. And from what I understand, Dead Space Extraction does fill in some holes that the original Dead Space had. And there's also Dead Space Ignition, which was a action puzzle video game. Kind of a pre-order spin-off thing. Don't know too much about that one. And there was apparently also a mobile title, though I couldn't tell you anything about that one.
I don't believe the mobile title even technically exists anymore.
No, it probably doesn't. It's a mobile. It came out in 2011, so it's almost assuredly dead.
Something mobile game lifespan something.
Right. But as far as the original Dead Space goes, well, it's been described as an X meets Y, as in what if System Shock, but as way of Resident Evil 4. And I suppose that's a good through line to talk about the origins of development, because apparently the original Dead Space was looking to be the third System Shock game at one point. Which is
It's interesting. Isn't System Shock more about rampant AI than about the alien zombies?
Yes and no. I'm like, believe me, System Shock has its fair of zombified creatures, let's say, but nothing as in nothing on the level of the necromorphs. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. Like, there's some things in System Shock 2 that are pretty fucking scary. But I'm not exactly sure when or why it got turned into original property. I might assume that's because, at the time EA only owned half the trademark. But suffice it to say, Dead Space became was also working in the Resident Evil framework. If you played the original, it feels very much like Resident Evil. Not as clunky, but it's definitely got a bit of that tank control clunk to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the camera you can actually maneuver, which was a marked difference from Resident Evil 4. You couldn't if you were moving, you couldn't really move the camera. And so getting back to the necromorphs, that's one of the things that really elevated the game series to a new level, because the necromorphs are different than your typical zombies.
I mean, this is a borderline cosmic horror thing, isn't it? Where
well, it's mostly in how you take them out. Because you don't aim for the head. Aiming for the head is actually not a good idea. You've got to cut off their limbs. Yeah, it's an idea that's kind of ass backwards when you first put it to paper.
I guess it keeps them from moving.
Well, no, that's the best way to dispatch them.
Uh-huh.
And I think they specifically designed that way in order to differentiate it from your typical monster.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you will get many forms of necromorphs, and even more as the series went on. And another thing that makes Dead Space distinct is its weapons arsenal. Because, at least in the first Dead Space, you're not a soldier, you're a welder. So all of your weapons are tools, modified for space, but, you're using an arc welder as a weapon.
Yeah, I've heard good things about the plasma torch.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that became so iconic, it became the standard weapon. Even in Dead Space 2 and 3, where you get more actual weapons, you still get the plasma torch or whatever the starting pistol is. So, it's one of those things that enhances the verisimilitude of the game. Another thing is it's one of those that said we're going with the minimalistic HUD, like you can see right here. You got no ammo, just like everything's in a hologram that's diegetic. Your energy or your life bar is that fucking glowing spine on Isaac's back.
Mm-hmm.
Real Donkey Kong Country HUD design here. Like the information is presented to you very efficiently and non-intrusively, which is definitely a thing that a lot of modern games could do with. Though I suppose, given the prevalence of smartphones, having a mini map on display isn't as immersion breaking as it once was.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, my van has a fucking navigator that will announce directions to me, so
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing isn't as breaking in the immersion as it used to be in, say, like when early Grand Theft Auto games had it. Anyway, and yeah, Dead Space is considered to be one of the best horror game franchises in existence. At least until we got to Dead Space 3, which took the franchise in unfortunate directions.
With what? It had drop-in, drop-out co-op. It was more actiony, I think.
Forced co-op. Action. They turned it into a full-bore action game, and the crafting system. Like, it's very.
Right.
Yeah, it's. Also the multiplayer restrictions. Remember those? Remember when companies were trying to get you to not buy used games by having you pay $10 for the multiplayer?
God.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that was something
Or
that
for
afflicted.
some dumb full thing that is
Yeah.
technically part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. That was not a thing. That was the thing that also affected at least the console versions of Dead Space 2.
Mhm.
And yeah, like EA was hoping to turn this into a mega franchise, maybe on the level of like Mass Effect, and Dead Space never reached those heights. I mean, clearly Dead Space didn't do poorly,
Mm-hmm.
just more not in line with what Dead Space was looking to sell by its third incarnation. And then, EA just cut the franchise loose, as they did with so many franchises and games around that time. Like, in fact, I'm not exactly sure how we got a Dead Space remake, but we got it. And it seems to be a huge success so far. How big of a success? We can't say. Like, the game's only been out for like a week at recording time. But I know EA Motive have expressed the desire to do a Dead Space 2 remake. We'll see if that is a thing that happens. Right. So, anything else to say on Dead Space?
Not that I can think of.
Unsurprisingly, the person who does not like shooters or zombie games much does not have much to say about Dead Space. Sorry.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm like, I don't think anyone here is a huge Dead Space fan, although I know they exist. Oh God, do they exist? And
They are loud.
yeah, they were super fucking loud 10 years ago when the franchise was in its death throes. Anyway, so yeah, that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon and the week ahead. So we do have a Friday show planned, though whether or not it happens is a bit up in the air because one Ilyana Svenzade of Fulcrum Publishing is supposed to be with us on Friday, but hasn't been very responsive in my contact messages. So we'll see if that happens. And if we do we do plan on talking about quite a few things because Fulcrum publishes a lot of stuff, like the Men of War series, and they just released the full version of Dread Templar, for example. Hopefully, more on that on Friday. And coming up on Sunday reviews, we'll be having reviews of Kiss the Demiurge, Shoulders of Giants, and Putin's Slayer. Only 3 reviews this week because of an infected finger. Needed to take a few days off of action games to make sure my finger recovered properly. Anyway, and we do have a new MSP episode happening in about 15 minutes. So until next time, I shall wish you good gaming.